Imagine a child standing in a park. You point to a forest and ask, which two trees are furthest apart? The child scans the trees. She measures the distance between pair A and B, then A and C. She holds these comparisons in memory, finds the maximum, and points. This is relational reasoning. It feels trivial, but for traditional deep learning models, even the ones that can recognize faces or drive cars, this specific type of mental gymnastics is incredibly difficult. We usually mistake pattern recognition for intelligence. Show a convolutional neural network 1,000 photos of cats, and it learns the texture of fur. It answers, "What is this?" perfectly. But reasoning is different. It's not about what an object is. It's about where it stands in relation to others. In the paper, A Simple Neural Network Module for Relational Reasoning, DeepMind researchers proved that standard networks are great at saying that is a sphere, but fail miserably at asking, is the sphere to the left of the cylinder? To measure this, they used CLEVR. These aren't just photos, they are geometric logic puzzles. Questions like, are there more blue things than red things? Or, what represents the same material as the cylinder? Standard powerful models, using ResNet 101 and attention, hit a hard ceiling at 68.5% accuracy. Humans score 92.6%. The machines weren't just slightly worse. On relational tasks, they were barely beating the baseline. They needed a new architecture. The researchers introduced the relation network, or RM. It's not a whole new brain. It's a module you plug into existing networks. The core idea is simple. Force the network to compare every single object against every other object. Here is the equation that defines it. Rn equals f phi of the sum of g theta of object I and object j. Let's break this down, because this single line contains the entire logic of relational reasoning. Let's start inside the parentheses with g theta. This is a small neural network, a multi-layer perceptron. Its job is to look at exactly two objects, OI and OJ, and ask, how are you two related? It doesn't know about the rest of the world. It just looks at the sphere and the cube. Crucially, we use the same g theta function for every single pair of objects. We don't learn a new rule for every pair. We learn one universal rule for how objects relate generally. This creates massive data efficiency. If you have a set of n objects, a standard network tries to learn the whole scene at once, but the relation network breaks it down into n-squared pairs. In a single pass, it runs the relation function n squared times. It's like practicing the concept of larger than hundreds of times per image, rather than just once. This prevents overfitting to specific objects and forces the model to learn the relationship itself. But now we have a list of relationships for every pair. How do we combine them? Look at the sigma symbol. We simply sum them up. This isn't just for convenience, it's mathematically vital. A list of objects in an image is a set. Order shouldn't matter. Sphere and cube is the same scene as cube and sphere. By summing the results, the output is permutation invariant. No matter what order we feed the objects in, the sum remains the same. The network aggregates all these little pairwise clues into one global context. So far, we've assumed we have a list of objects, but images are just pixels. How does the model find object I? It uses a standard CNN. The CNN processes the 128 by 128 image into feature maps, let's say a grid of D by D cells. Here is the clever part. The RAN treats each cell in that grid as an object. It doesn't need a bounding box. It doesn't need to know this is a tire. It just asks, does this patch of pixels relate to that patch of pixels? The model implicitly learns what an object is during training. Of course, context changes everything. Is it left of requires different math than is it darker than. So the g theta function actually takes three inputs, object A, object B, and the question embedding Q. The question is processed by an LSTM into a vector, and that vector is appended to every single pair. This acts as a control signal, directing the g function on which relationship to measure. To prove this architecture is what makes the difference, the authors created Sort-of-CLEVR, a
A simple 2D dataset where they could mathematically separate relational questions from non-relational ones. The results were stark. On questions like, what color is the object, standard CNNs did fine. But on relational questions like, what is the shape of the object furthest from the gray one, standard CNNs crashed, scoring only 63%. The relation network, it hit 94%. It proved that the capacity for reasoning isn't just about size, it's about structure.
When applied to the full, complex, CLEVR dataset, the results were even more impressive. Remember that 92.6% human benchmark? The relation network achieved superhuman performance, solving 95.5% of the problems. It didn't just guess, it successfully reasoned through complex chains of logic that stumped traditional models. This isn't limited to pixels. The authors applied the same RN module to text using the bAbI dataset, solving 18 out of 20 complex reasoning tasks. They even applied it to a physics simulation of invisible springs connecting balls. By observing the balls moving, the RN inferred which ones were connected by springs and which weren't, effectively discovering the hidden laws of the physical system just by watching pairs of objects move. The relation network teaches us a fundamental lesson about AI. We often try to solve problems by just making networks deeper, but sometimes the solution lies in architectural constraints. By forcing the network to look at pairs and forcing it to sum the results, we bake in the logic of relations and sets. We don't just teach the model what to learn, we teach it how to think.